you're doing well. Let me know where you're from in the chat. This is my most favorite part of the week. We talk about cool books. Let me know. I see Angela's from Shanghai. I see lots of familiar names. Let's see. Jonas is Shanghai and Max is from Beijing. Angela's Shanghai. I'm not sure what PMY is. And William and Sherry and Michael. Hey, Michael. And Danny, lots of familiar names I know. This is great. We're going to talk about the moon. Oh, Ellie, yes. I already asked Ellie in the chat, was he with you? And I didn't get a response. I figured he was. Okay. Sounds good. Austin, who I teach, is in with his sister today. Awesome. Let's talk about the moon. Let me show you guys a couple things. And I got lots to do, lots of fun stuff. So I want to make sure we get through all our neat stuff today, including our book. Okay, so the moon. Here's an astronaut. And America was the first country to put people actually on the moon, not the first people in space, but the first people to put people on the moon. There's people up in space right now on the International Space Station. They're not on the moon. They're not going to a planet, but China and the US and Europe are launching probes to Mars in July. All of us, all the countries. And probes are things that land on the surface of somewhere, but nobody's in them. And it can take pictures and it can roll around a little bit. So I did a Mars webinar about a month or two ago, and we talked about that there. So anyway, that's kind of cool. But we're talking about the moon today. So right now, if you go out in a while, and if it's clear enough at your house, you'll see the moon. Now remember, it's 8 o'clock in the morning for me. My day is just getting started, but for you guys, it's 8 at night. And I know it's summer, so it's a little bit later, but I pulled up and I'll see the same phase of the moon tonight that you're gonna see. And if you look at, I pulled this up on my newspaper today, but then I put it on my phone so I could show it to you guys. I put our moon phases right there. I know it's a little backwards, but right now we're close to June 28th. It's June 27th today. So we're in what's called the first quarter moon. And if you look at July the 5th, I know it's backwards, it'll be a full moon. So the moon right now to us, if we look up at it, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger till it's a whole circle, which is a full moon. And then it's going to get a little bit smaller. So a couple days ago, it was a little banana shape, a crescent moon. Now it's going to be a half moon if you look at it tonight, if it's not cloudy. And it'll be getting a little bit bigger tomorrow. So the phases of the moon are different shapes that we see, okay? Our book talks a little bit about that, but I want to make sure you knew that because I'll share that again in a second. Let me go back to my PowerPoint here. So what is the moon? The moon is a large body that revolves around a bigger body like a planet, okay? Mercury and Venus are the first two planets here by the moon, okay? They don't, by the sun. They don't have any moons, okay? Then we're the big blue planet. We have one moon. Mars has 2 moons. Jupiter has tons of moons. Because it's so big, it pulls more and more into, it's a big body in space. And whatever's kind of flying by, whatever little rock is flying by, it pulls it in its gravity. Saturn has 62 moons. Uranus has 27. See, Uranus is a planet that's kind of tipped over on its side. All these ones out here, these gas giants, all have rings. Okay, they have rings that goes around, even Jupiter does, of ice and rock. They're so cold, they're very far away from the sun. Just that red spot there on Jupiter, we can fit Earth in that one red spot. So these are pretty big. They're called the gas giants. Neptune has 14 moons. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys that. How big are other planets and their moons? Well, we have a moon, like I said, we have one moon. Mars has 2 moons called Phobos and Deimos. Okay, Mars, remember we said Mercury and Venus have no moons. We have one moon. Mars has 2 moons. And what's really cool about Mars is it's got the biggest mountain in the whole solar system on one of its moons. And honestly, I'm not sure which moon, if it's Phobos or Deimos, but on the actual moon, it's got the biggest mountain in the whole solar system. Okay, then we hit Jupiter and it's got lots of moons, like we said, like over here we said Jupiter has 63 moons, and I think they even have more right now because every year they're finding more and more moons with a telescope. They can look and see them that Jupiter's pulled in, but its main big moons are right here. Saturn has 60 some moons, and it's got big moons here too. Okay, you can see that Earth is bigger than a lot of their moons. One thing that our science agency called NASA's talked about is going maybe to Titan, one of the moons of Saturn, because if we can find water anywhere in the solar system on a planet, on a moon, it might be on Titan. So even though these outer planets are gaseous, you cannot land there, some of their moons are solid rock. So that's kind of a neat thing we could think of. Gosh, if we could land a probe there, maybe not a person yet, but a probe. And honestly, NASA, our space agency, have sent flyby. They go by flying about, past these other planets, and they just take picture, 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 picture as they move. Nobody's in them. Nobody's been out that way, okay? Astronauts have only been to the moon, our moon, and in space, okay? Let's go back to our book here. Let me show you our book because I think you'll like it. It's got a lot of words, but it's pretty interesting. It's not boring because you guys know me. I don't pick a boring book. Okay? Let me know in the chat, guys, if you guys can see this page. Jackie says yes. And Ellie, thank you. Okay. It says, meet the moon. Oh, hi, moon. Okay. It says, have you ever wondered about the moon? How far away it is, how big it is, why does it keep changing shape? Is there really a man on the moon? Scientists have answered many of these questions and others. Let's learn what they've discovered about the moon. There's a full moon above a city, so that's a whole circle. The moon will be a whole circle, a full moon, like my newspaper said on my phone, about around July the 5th or 6th. Okay, so in another week, it's going to get bigger and bigger every night. This is a pretty night. It's a clear night here. A moon is a large body that revolves around a planet. Earth is not the only planet with a moon. Most of the planets that orbit around the sun have moons. Mercury and Venus are the only two planets with no moons. Remember we said that a minute ago. Okay, another name for a moon might be a satellite. You might have heard maybe a weather satellite or a cell phone satellite. Those are man-made objects that we put up in space to look at the weather or help us with our cell phones. But a natural satellite means it came from nature, like our moon. We have one moon. The moon is Earth's only natural satellite. A satellite is an object that orbits around another object. Many human-made satellites circle the Earth. They bring you TV shows, weather forecasts, and directions in your car. But there's only one satellite that was put here by nature. That's the moon. How was the moon formed? Most scientists now believe the moon was created when a large body in space collided with Earth. That means it smashed into Earth. Pieces from both bodies stayed in space. Over time, gravity pulled this material together to form the moon. Guys, when something spins, okay, the heavier stuff goes to the middle and it kind of becomes a circle. You don't normally see like a rectangle or like a square shape in space. This theory of the moon's formation has been supported by rocks found on the moon that are similar to rocks found on Earth. Did you guys know that I'm one of the only people certified to actually have moon rocks? I've had NASA send them to me before to show in my classroom here to my students, and it's very, very safe. They send them to me in the mail. I have to sign for them when I get the rocks. And when I send them back to NASA in Texas, that's our space agency, they have to be sent very carefully because think about it, you can't replace the moon rocks. When I have them, there has to be an armed guard around them if they're out. So it's very, very special. They're priceless, meaning I can never get more. So they're pretty important, almost worth more than gold because you can't get more unless you go back to the moon. Yeah, so they're just like our rocks are very similar to moon rocks. Most planets have moons that are much smaller than they are. The Earth's moon, however, is about 1/4 of the size of Earth. It's about 2,160 miles wide. I'm not sure what that is in kilometers. The moon is the Earth's closest neighbor in space. Today, it's about 240,000 miles away. That's a long trip to visit a neighbor. So the moon's pretty close to us compared to the sun. The sun is pretty far away. The moon's not that far to go. Astronauts, when they went from NASA, they launched from Florida, one of our states. They went up and it took them about 3 days to get there. Okay, because remember, you got to go a little bit slower if you're a human. If I put, like, for example, China is going to launch something to Mars with nobody in it, it can go pretty fast. but it has to go a little bit slower if a human body is in it, because we can't withstand all of that force going that fast. Okay, right, Ellie? There's volcano rocks. Yep, you have went to a volcano. That's cool. Volcanoes are pretty neat. All right, let me go ahead and show you another thing here. And this is let me show this. Okay, and make sure you can see this PowerPoint. It says, how did the moon form? Again, you guys know what phase this is in. Phase means shape. When it's a whole circle, it's called a full moon, right? It used to be a lot closer than Earth. Okay, I've already got this link ready, but I want to go ahead and put it out there this way. And I want to make sure you guys can see. Let me know in the chat if you can see this coming up. I've already got this ready, so I'll stop there for a second. Let me know in the chat if you guys can see this. I got a couple things I want to show you here. We go away from the book. Thank you, Ellie and David. Great. Okay. So this is kind of how the moon formed. Let me go a little bit further with this astronomer
that
talk.
Interactions with the other planets in the solar system would cause Earth's rotational axis to vary by many tens of degrees on timescales of millions of years. This would have profound impact on the overall climate of the Earth. And while the Earth, with such a wildly changing tilt, might still have been habitable, it would certainly have been an entirely different climate and a different Earth than we have today. And so in this way, the formation of our moon and the formation of our moon of...
You guys see the phases, the light that we see? And remember, the moon doesn't make its own light. It's reflected sunlight. So there we see like a banana shape or a crescent. Then we see a half. Then we see almost a full, and then a whole moon is a full moon.
Just the mass of our moon has had a very important impact on the evolution of the Earth's spin state, and with it, the evolution of our long-term climate. There's a fundamental connection between...
These are the Apollo astronauts, the ones that went from America to the moon, and the very last missions in Apollo, they actually had a little car they took on the moon. And it didn't go very far. They didn't want to go very fast. There's a little bit of gravity on the moon, not as much as Earth.
In our studies of the origin of the moon and the physical samples that were brought back by the Apollo mission, the actual rocks from the moon. When those rocks were first studied, we learned several very significant things. One, we learned that compositionally, those rocks are extraordinarily similar to the upper layers of the Earth.
So she's just talking about what our book said. When they brought rocks back from the moon, they're very similar to Earth. So it must be that the Earth and the moon kind of collided, and then they kind of separate a little bit and started spinning. So that's why the moon isn't too far away from us. Okay, let me show you this for a second. And this is about the moon. I'm gonna make sure you guys can see this. Hold on just a second. Okay. You guys know some brain pops here. This is an astro, okay, and there's this little space capsule. There's the full moon. Let me know real quick if, yeah, you guys can see this. Max and Ellie. Okay, David, good. Okay, let's see what they say. This crazy robot. Wants me to log in. Let me go back out of this for a second. I might need to pull this up on my, yeah, that's what I'll do. Let me go out of this for a second, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, hold on just a second. Let me pull this up this way. It'll be a little bit easier by our book. Bear with me just a second. All right, now we got it. Let me know if you can see this screen, this a little bit better. Okay, there we go.
Dear Tim and Moby, could you please make a movie about the moon? From C-3PO. The moon has fascinated humanity since the dawn of time and continues to captivate us to this day. It's Earth's only natural satellite, making one complete revolution around our planet every 27 days or so.
So it takes about a month for the moon to go around us. Notice the Earth is spinning and the moon is spinning. The word revolution our book talked about means they're kind of going around something. So the Earth and the moon both are rotating, and we hold hands and we go around the sun. And it takes us a whole year to go around the sun. And he just said for the moon to go around us, it takes about a month. Okay?
The moon is the second brightest object in the sky next to the sun, but the moon doesn't actually make any light of its own. The light you see is actually from the sun, reflecting off the surface of the moon. It's kind of like shining a flashlight on something in a dark room. Right. The moon doesn't always appear as a perfect circle. It goes through phases.
Shapes.
Sunlight strikes the moon at different angles throughout its journey around the Earth. The way the moon looks to us depends on how much of the moon's illuminated side is visible to us at the time. The moon may take 27.3 days to orbit the Earth, but the time from one full moon to the next is 29.5 days because the Earth...
Do you see how weird the moon's going around us in a month? He said about 28 days. And sometimes you might have more than one phase, a full moon phase in a month, but we've got us and we're all going around this big yellow dot here. Do you guys know what this big yellow thing is? We go around and all the other planets in our solar system go around. What is that called? Tell me in the chat. Good, Nathan, Alan. Yep, Lucy, you are right. You guys are so smart. I can't fool you. Jeremy and Ellie, awesome. It's the sun. Yep, Annie, got it. Good job.
The Earth is also moving in relation to the sun. We call this period from one full moon to the next a lunar month, by the way. Moon watching is a fun thing to do. The moon is an average of about 380,000 kilometers from the Earth, which is pretty close when you're talking about space. Because of its proximity, you don't need a telescope to see the features on the moon's surface. The dark patches are sunken plains called seas, or maria, which is Latin for ocean.
When Galileo first looked up it with a telescope, he was one of the first people to use a telescope in the 1600s. He looked up and he went, "Oh, Maria." That's Italian for oceans. He thought that was water. But there's no water on the moon. When you look up at the moon and you see those darker areas, those are kind of just flat areas, okay? And there's definitely a lot of craters on the moon too, big holes.
No, they're just called that. There's no liquid water on the moon. But there is some water in the form of ice. Recently, a NASA spacecraft discovered almost 100 kilograms of ice and water vapor near the moon's south pole. Yep, it's possible there's lots more buried just underneath the surface, but I wouldn't count on, a skating rink or anything like that. The lighter patches are mountains. And armed with a pair of binoculars, on a clear night, you may be able to see the craters formed by ancient meteor collisions.
Neat.
Well, there's a lot of debate as to how the moon got there in the first place. Some scientists believe that it may have just formed along with the Earth from the initial cloud of gas and dust that formed our solar system.
Remember, that's what our book just said too, but there's lots of different theories, things that could have happened.
Another idea is that moon was once part of the Earth, then broke off for some reason.
Maybe.
It might have just been floating through the solar system and got captured by the Earth's gravity. Still another theory suggests that a rogue planet, about the size of Mars, smashed into the Earth, creating a cloud of molten rock that eventually condensed into the moon we see today.
Whoa.
No one really knows for sure. Regardless of how it formed, the moon is basically a ball of igneous rock with a small core of iron and sulfur.
Like the Earth.
It has a rocky crust consisting of aluminum and calcium. You can find bigger moons in the solar system, but ours is the biggest compared to the size of the mother planet. It's large enough to pull at the waters of the Earth, causing tides.
Tides are the rise and fall of the ocean. That happens 4 times a day, low tides and high tides.
Still, gravity on the moon is only 1/6 of the Earth's. That's why this air conditioner feels 6 times lighter up here. And since the moon has no atmosphere, there's nothing for sound waves to travel through.
Notice his little spacesuit. Those spacesuits were hundreds of pounds, many, many kilograms. But they got on the moon and they could, get in them because on the moon, you don't weigh as much. So if you weigh 100 pounds on Earth, you might weigh 60 pounds on the moon. Okay, so it's only 1/6 of our gravity. So you could still hop around the moon. You won't fly away, but you're not like us sitting in a seat. You kind of have a little bit of gravity, but not as much.
That means it's absolutely silent here.
On July 20th, 1969, the landing module Eagle from the Apollo 11 mission touched down on the surface of the moon. They collected some samples and then blasted off, leaving this plaque behind. Here, men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon. We came in peace for all mankind. The first moon landing, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the greatest moments in human history. Be quiet. I have something in my throat.
He's getting very sentimental about the moon. That's cool. Okay, would you guys have wanted to go, tell me in the chat, on the first moon mission? Would you have done that? That'd be pretty exciting. Alan says no. Dangerous. It would be dangerous. Nathan, yeah. Angela says, of course. Ellie says no. Lucy, no. Max, yeah. It'd be pretty exciting. Now remember, I do see some questions. I'm going to go over questions at the end too, okay? I'll try to get to them as I see them, but I'm kind of going back and forth between 3 different screens, so we'll definitely do questions at the end too. Okay, let's go back to our book. How about that? All right, we talked about the moon and the moon movement, and let's do this. Okay, there's our book, Moon Movement. Oh, this is like the video we just saw. You guys see how the moon goes and twirls around, rotates, we rotate, and we kind of go, the moon goes around us in a month, and then we kind of go around the sun, like you guys said, in a year. It says, did you know that the word month comes from the word moon? That's because it takes about 1 month for the moon to make one orbit or revolution around the Earth. Every 27.3 days, we say about a month, the moon completes one trip around the planet. The moon also rotates or spins on its axis. An axis is an imaginary line that runs through the center of the moon. So pretend a little line's going that way and a little line's going that way. So while it's moving around the Earth, the moon is also moving around its axis. That's a lot of moon movement. It's because of the moon's rotation that we always see the same side of the moon from Earth. The moon rotates at the same speed it revolves. This keeps the same side of the moon facing the Earth at all times. Okay, that's pretty interesting. Oh, it's a merry-go-round. I want to go on that. That looks fun. It says, what do the moon and a merry-go-round have in common? You might see that at a park by the slides and the swings. Both the sun and the moon appear to rise in the east, move across the sky, and then set in the west. But actually, neither the sun nor moon really rises or sets. The Earth's movement just causes them to look as if they're moving. The Earth rotates once every 24 hours, right? Like you guys are at nighttime and I'm at daytime. As it turns, it makes the objects in the sky appear to move. It's like being on the merry-go-round. When you begin, the people waiting in line might be in front of you. As you turn, they move to the side and then behind you. But the people aren't really moving. Their position in relationship to you changes because you're moving. The same is true of the Earth and the moon. Here's something about the phases. Do you guys see how the moon here is a different phase? It's not a whole circle. It's like a banana, like a yellow banana, but it's white. That's called a crescent moon. One day the moon looks like a banana. Another day it looks like a circle. Every day it looks fatter or thinner than the day before. Why does this happen? The side of the moon facing the sun is always light. As the moon orbits around the Earth, different parts of the lit moon are visible. What parts we see depends on positions of the moon, Earth, and sun. The different parts or shapes of the moon are known as the phases of the moon. Phases mean the shape. Okay, let me show you a little bit. I want to show you the shapes on my PowerPoint. Let me show you something else about the moon before I show you the shapes. It says, what is it like on the moon? Remember I showed you the astronauts? There's their little car they had. There's a big crater. You can see maybe with a telescope. There's no atmosphere, so you can't breathe there. You guys see how it's dark back here? That means when rocks came in, it just made giant holes like that one. They're called craters or holes. There's lots of those on the moon. There's no water, although they said there's a little bit maybe an ice there near the South Pole. There's no weather. There's mountains and there's craters. Walking on the moon is not easy. Let me show you this. And I already have this open, but I'm going to do it that way. Okay. Here we go. Watch these guys. They're falling and jumping.
No, dadgummit.
These are the astronauts from America. And when they first went there, they're kind of doing tricks. They're trying to walk, but they're also dropping things. It's kind of funny. He's
Jack
falling.
Schmidt having a few problems. Hang on. Yeah. All right. Good show.
Watch
I
him.
told him you were.
Go down slow and come up slow.
Okay. We see that one went all the way in. Not quite.
And a lot of this, the astronauts were told, we want you to do experiments when you're on the moon. One of them is, let's see how far your foot can go in. Let's see if you can bounce up from, you know, a laying down position. It's hard. He's got the oxygen on his back.
But there it is, all but about 5 inches. Okay.
Huh?
Boy, do I like to run up here.
See, he's got a little shovel in his hand because he was getting moon rocks and getting dirt to put and to keep and to take back to Earth.
Boy, do I like to run up here.
Fun.
I feel like Bugs Bunny. That's neat.
Hopping around. Uh-oh. They did lots of experiments.
Not me, boy. Or whatever you call it. I can't get my left leg in front of me.
Looks fun.
I'll give you a demonstration here, Joe. Roger. Right on. Here, Joe.
Throwing something.
Spectacular demonstration. Oh, well. Enough of that. Lovely. What was that a demonstration of, by the way? It started out to be of gravity, and it wound up being of centrifugal force, I think.
Okay, so they did lots of little experiments so they could see how it was. That's kind of fun. Okay, let's look at this song. Can you guys see there? It says, have fun teaching. Can you guys see this? I think you liked that, didn't you, with those guys laughing. Thank Jonas. Thank you, Jonas. Okay, Sophia, thanks. William and Angela.
Light from the sun, these are the phases of the moon.
So these are the shapes, the phases.
Moon, moon, moon. The Earth's moon orbits all around us. It reflects the light from the sun. These are the phases of the moon. Moon, 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 moon.
When the moon is in between the Earth and the sun, it's a new moon phase and it looks like it's gone. When the Earth is in between the sun and the moon, it's a full moon phase and it looks like a balloon. When the moon is in between the Earth and the sun, it's a new moon phase and it looks like it's gone. When the Earth is in between the sun and the moon, it's a full moon phase and it looks like a balloon.
The Earth's moon orbits all around us. It reflects the light from the sun. These are the phases of the moon.
These are the phases of the moon. These are the phases of the moon.
The Earth's moon orbits all around us. It reflects the light from the sun. These are the phases of the moon.
These are the phases of the moon. These are the phases of the moon. The moon goes through 8 different phases. The moon looks different, but it never really changes.
Remember, these are all the shapes it goes through for the whole month. This is called a new moon when you can't see the moon at all. And I bet if it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, it's going to be a full moon over here. So it goes, they're just showing you above the Earth what it looks like throughout the whole month.
Depends on the position. position of the Earth, Moon, and Sun. Come on, everybody, make the lunar cycle fun. The moon goes through 8 different phases. The moon looks different, but it never really changes. It depends on the position of the Earth, Moon, and Sun. Come on, everybody, make the lunar cycle fun.
Do you guys see how it says full moon right here? And whenever you see this word crescent, see there's one there and there's one there, it means a banana shape. But see over here, it's a different side lit up than over here. Crescent means the banana shape. First quarter or last quarter is half. Okay, so tonight, remember I showed you you're going to be seeing this. Okay, it's going to get bigger. A gibbous means it's almost a circle. See that? Waxing just means it's getting bigger. Waxing and waxing, it's getting bigger. Waning, not raining, but waning means it's getting smaller.
The Earth's moon orbits all around us. It reflects the light from the sun. These are the phases of the moon.
These are the phases of the moon. These are the phases of the moon.
Okay, you guys will probably have that song in your mind for the rest of the day, right? But you guys see some of the shapes. Oh yeah, I like how you're doing your emojis there with the shapes. The moon is close enough to us, Nathan, that it doesn't get pulled to other planets. It kind of stays with us, like our buddy, our friend. The other planets are really far away. Even Mars is really super far away. It's not very close at all. So they're not going to pull a rock from us. It's kind of like if you have something at your desk, the person on the other side of the room in the classroom can't get, your thing is too far away. His hand can't reach. Okay? All right, let's go back to our book. Actually, let me show you the phases I have on here because I wanted to show you this. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so these are the shapes we just saw. New moon, that's a crescent, like a banana shape here and also over here. But see, it says waxing here and waning here. Half moon is what you'll see tonight. Okay, and the next couple nights you'll see this. You'll see almost a circle because I think my note there had the full moon as July the 8th, and today we're June 27th. So we've got a ways to go before we see a full moon, about another week. Okay, so we have different phases of the moon here. Again, these are crescents, remember that? And there is a full moon. Okay, all right, let me go back to our book and go to the next page since we did phases. Let me show you this. It goes on with the phases a little bit more. It's pretty important. Okay, it says phases of the moon here. Can you guys see this picture? And it's got the new moon here when you don't see it. Then a full moon we'll see in a couple or another week. So right now we're right here, first quarter. In the next couple of days it'll be getting bigger. Okay, it says the phases of the moon. When the moon is on the same side of Earth as the sun, the dark side of the moon faces Earth. This means we can't see the moon. This phase of the moon cycle is called the new moon. It's called this because from this point on, it looks like a new moon is forming, almost like it's starting to get bigger, like a moon. That's what it means. For the next week, the moon continues to move around the Earth. More of the lit moon becomes visible. Visible means I can see it. First, it looks like a thin fingernail or a banana. Then it begins to look like a banana. Each day, the crescent shape gets a little wider. A week after the moon is a half circle. This is called the first quarter, like that. Why is it called a first quarter when it looks like it's half? It's because the moon is a quarter of the way through the cycle for the month. The moon continues to grow larger throughout the next week. When it's more than a half circle but less than a whole circle, it's called a gibbous moon. Gibbous, see gibbous there and gibbous there. It's not a whole circle yet. Gibbous is from an old word meaning hunchback. The lit part of the moon now has a hunchback. Its back is bent over. A week after the first quarter, the moon is a full circle. This phase is the full moon. Each day after the full moon, the moon begins to thin out. It becomes a gibbous moon. Remember, it's called waning, not raining. Waning means getting smaller. It becomes a gibbous moon, then a last or a third quarter moon, and finally a crescent moon again. On the last day of the cycle, the moon is once again a new moon. See these words waxing and waning? When the lit up part of the moon looks larger each day, it's said to be waxing. When it looks smaller each day, it's waning. There are waxing crescent and gibbous moons and waning crescents and gibbous moons each month. Okay? All right. So let's go to one more little thing on phases because I think you guys like brain pops. I want to show you a minute of this, not long. Okay. And it's that crazy robot again. And we're going to see the shapes. That's what phases mean. Okay. See the phases there? The crazy robot. And they're going to get into what's called eclipses after this, but we're not going to go into those. That's a whole nother book talk I have for you guys at another time. I want to show you other stuff today.
It's not what it looks like. To Tim and Moby. I've heard the moon waxes and wanes. What does that mean? From Devin. Hey Devin. Here on Earth, the moon doesn't always look like a perfect circle in the sky. Its appearance changes over time. It waxes or grows and wanes or shrinks. The moon goes through a cycle of different shapes or phases over the course of about 1 month. In fact, the whole concept of months is based on this cycle.
And you guys see he's got a calendar here with months. It doesn't mean that the new moon is always on the first day of the month. The new moon might be here and then go through the phases, because not every month is 27.5 days or whatever they said. Months can be 31 days. They can be 28 days. They can be 30 days. So the new moon is hardly ever on the first day of the month. They're just showing you the beginning of the cycle. Remember, new moon, now it's waxing. It's getting bigger. It's a crescent, like a banana shape. Then it's a half quarter like it is tonight. Then it's getting a little bit bigger and a gibbous. Then it's a full moon. Then it gets a little bit smaller and it's waning. Okay, back to a new moon.
Believe it or not, shadows have nothing to do with the moon's phases. You might be picturing the Earth-Moon-Sun system like this. But if everything were all flat like this, you'd get a solar eclipse every time the moon was here, and a lunar eclipse every time it was here. In reality, eclipses are pretty rare. Okay, let's see how it really looks. The moon's orbit around the Earth is tilted about 5 degrees from our orbit around the sun.
Remember the word orbit?
So, in most cases, any shadows cast by the Earth and moon completely miss each other. Now that we've cleared that up, let's see the phases in action. Like the Earth, half the moon's surface is always lit by the sun, and half is in the dark. But the amount of that bright side that we can see changes as the moon moves through its orbit. When the moon is directly between the Earth and Sun, forming a straight line, the entire bright side is facing away from us, so we see nothing at all, or at best a dark disk. This phase is called the new moon. Right, as you move along in your orbit, more and more of your bright side becomes visible to me.
Bigger and bigger.
In other words, the moon is waxing. Phases where you can see less than half of the bright side are called crescent moons. When the moon has completed 1/4 of its orbit around Earth, we can see half of its illuminated side. Astronomers call this the first quarter moon, but it's more commonly known as a half moon. Once you can see more than half, it's called a gibbous moon. When the moon and the sun are on opposite sides of the Earth, the entire bright side of the moon is facing toward us, so we see a shiny full moon.
Okay, I'm going to stop there because I want to go on to something else, but I want you guys to see the phases, okay? All right, let's go back to, let's see, and I want to show this. This is part of my PowerPoint just to show you what, guys, that I talked about revolution and rotation. So the moon is going around us. Okay, we're kind of holding hands and going around the sun. So the moon goes around us in 1 month. We both go around the sun in 1 year. Mars, for example, the next planet, the red planet, it takes, our year is about 365 days. It takes them almost 700 days to go around. They have twice as long of a year than we do. Okay, pretty neat. Okay, let me go back to our book. And then I want to show you something about China when they went to the moon. Okay, let me move our page. Journey to the moon. The first people, like I said, to go on the moon were the Americans and the Apollo missions, and this is the picture of them. I'm going to skip over eclipses for a second and go to Journey to the Moon. Okay, for thousands of years, people have been looking at the moon and wondering what was up there. For hundreds of years, scientists have been studying the moon through telescopes. Then in 1959, the Soviet Union sent the first unmanned spacecraft to get a closer look. It means a rocket like you have going and we have going to Mars. Nobody's in it, unmanned. 5 years later, the United States sent the unmanned Ranger 7 to explore the moon. Other unmanned moon missions followed. Pictures and informations were collected so humans could later travel to the moon. You want to make sure it's safe, so you might send something else to go to the moon before you send a person. In 1969, the United States launched Apollo 11 with 3 astronauts on board. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins became the first men to visit the moon. 6 more Apollo missions followed. Okay. The astronauts brought home information about the moon. They found rocks and dust, but no water, plants, or little green men. They confirmed that there was no life on the moon. The astronauts who also planted an American flag, played golf, bounced around in moon buggies, you guys just saw that, and watched a beautiful Earth rise. Instead of seeing the sun come up, they saw the Earth come up. With no wind or water to erase them, the footprints the astronauts left on the moon may last for millions of years. So the wind's not going to take that away. There's no wind or erosion or any kind of weathering on the moon. Okay? Pretty crazy, huh? They'll be there forever. Okay? Let me show you guys what the mission from China looked like. This is a probe. Nobody's in it. Okay? That was what was sent to the moon from China. Let me show you guys this. I have this set up, but I'm going to go this way with it. Okay. Let me go to this. Okay, this is what it looks like. China's, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, landing. This is it coming down. They launched it on a rocket just like the Americans, and they actually sent a little probe down to the moon. This is going pretty fast, even though it doesn't look like it, going very fast to the moon. See the crater right there, the holes? It doesn't want to land in these big craters, so it had to know where to land. So that's why they sent things there first to take pictures, so they'd know where to land. See all the craters, the holes? Yet, but it's going down fast. Wow. And touchdown. It's landed. Pretty neat, huh? Whoops. All right, let me go to the next thing here. I have another thing about China. Okay, this just shows a little bit about the Apollo missions at first, okay? Then it talks about China.
A space mission has touched down on the far side of the moon. China's Chang'e 4 probe landed in the oldest and deepest basin on the moon's surface, making the mission a milestone for both China and space exploration as a whole. This isn't the first time China has landed on the moon. In 2013, Chang'e 3 successfully touched down on Mare Imbrium, a huge lava plain on the moon's surface. But until now, China has never explored the moon's mysterious dark side. No one has. That's actually why it's called the dark side. It's not hidden from the sun. It's hidden from our view. That's because the moon is in what's called synchronous rotation with the Earth, which means
This is an answer to one of your questions. So yes, I do see the questions that are being asked. I just can't stop reading the book and doing, like I said at the beginning, okay, guys? So I can't see the questions. I just can't get to them as fast as you're putting them in there. So somebody just did ask, why do we see the same side of the moon always?
time the moon rotates once on its axis, it also completes one orbit around the Earth. As a result, we see the same face of the moon every night. In fact, we only got our first glimpse of the far side in 1959, when the Soviet Union's Luna 3 took pictures as it flew by. And while we've had numerous landings on the near side of the moon, no one's attempted to touch down on the far side before. And for good reason. It's impossible to communicate with anything over there.
And talk to anybody back at Mission Control on Earth if you're on the other side of the moon. So it's very scary.
The signal would get blocked by the rest of the moon. But China's team has a solution. They launched a relay satellite with a clear view of both Chang'e 4 and the Earth. And so far, the plan's working. Here are the very first images taken by Chang'e 4. The first in history ever taken from the surface on the dark side of the moon. What's more, you're looking at the oldest, largest, and deepest basin the moon has. Chang'e 4 landed on von Karman, a flat landscape that sits inside South Pole Aitken Basin. The basin is around 2,500 kilometers across. That's about the distance from New York to Dallas. And it's a whopping 8 kilometers deep. For comparison, the deepest natural point on Earth, the Challenger Deep, is nearly 11 kilometers deep. Next, the lander will release a rover that will explore the surrounding area. One of its tasks is to study the composition of rocks and dirt in the basin.
This is the same type of thing that China is launching July the 7th. That's going to go to Mars. It's a rover. It means it has wheels on it. See how it's got these solar panels on the side? That's how it gets its energy.
Scientists believe this is the oldest basin on the moon. Learning what it's made of might help us understand how Earth's only moon formed and evolved. But that's only one goal of the mission. Besides cameras and spectrometers, Chang'e 4 also brought along potatoes and silkworm eggs. Researchers hope to test how well plants can grow and eggs can hatch in the moon's low gravity. It's the first mini greenhouse to ever land on another world in our solar system, and might help prepare us for space colonies in the future.
Okay, so I wanted to show you guys that. Okay, so that's pretty neat. That's the China probe that landed on the dark side of the moon. So I will be glad to take questions now. Yes, guys, Alan, I'm going to look at the questions. Remember at the beginning, I said I can't look at the questions the whole time that I'm reading the book and stuff, so I'll definitely leave time at the end. So like that one question was just answered. Sometimes your questions are answered without me even having to say anything about why we see one side of the moon. Okay, so yes, we'll take questions. Alan, your question is the moon also affected by the sun's gravity? I see it in the question and answer section. Yeah, that's why it kind of stays close to us, but it doesn't fly away. Yeah, Annie is asking me the same thing. Kathy is asking me the same thing. Yes. Alan, asteroids can hit Jupiter, but it's gaseous, so they don't really do anything or bounce off. So probably more asteroids hit the moon, I would think, because there's a lot more craters there. That's how I know, because I can see craters. There's no craters on Jupiter because it's all gaseous. Okay. The moon stays in its where it's supposed to be. Angela answered your question, one of your questions. The other question was already answered. So the moon stays right where it needs to be compared to the Earth, okay? Oh, guys, I hope you enjoyed the webinar today, the book talk. I love talking about space and the moon. I'll be doing another book talk in a couple weeks, but you guys remember you have them on Tuesdays and Saturdays and Sundays. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll do one in July, on July 4th, the Independence Day of America. Have a great rest of your evening. Thank you so much for listening and being such a good audience. Bye-bye.